War. War has changed. ID-tagged guns, carrying ID-tagged weapons, carrying ID-tagged guns. Also ninjas. Ninjas fucking everywhere. War. War has changed.
So, as of the time of when I first played it, I went from liking Metal Gear Rising to loving Metal Gear Rising. Watching other people play it on skill levels way beyond my reach, seeing and reading reviews and playing it again afterwards, I've really grown to love it quite a bit despite being kind of unsure about it at first. That was mostly because I really wanted to see the plot Hideo Kojima had in mind originally. But now I realize that if it wasn't for Platinum, this game likely would have been just another simple hack and slash game instead of it being a fucking masterpiece. But one thing that has always seemed a bit bland to me were most of the game's locales. I mean, I get it, war and stuff, Middle Eastern Borat mustaches, whatever, but all of that brown, beige and brown doesn't necessarily make for the most aesthetically pleasing shit. However, there is one stage in MGR that stands as an exception, and it just so happens to be my favorite part of the entire game. I am, of course, talking about Denver. Now, I don't know about you, but as far as real life goes, Denver doesn't seem to be all that remarkable. It's just a place with buildings and people and shit. But in Metal Gear Rising, it's a pretty great change of scenery. I mean, after hours of having to suffer through brown, you instantly get treated to green, blue, white, and, like, actual colors. But what I like about this stage more so than just the color palette is that you actually get a taste of what a proper city would look like in Metal Gear's future, which is something barely explored in any of the MGS games as most of the series takes place in facilities and war zones. So I really like that you get more than just a glimpse here, and it's also fittingly subtle. Like, for all of the crazy antics the Metal Gear series and Rising especially are known for, it has always been relatively subtle about its futuristic themes. Well, I mean, there are giant mechs fucking everywhere and you get tons of cyberpunk UIs in your face, but they look realistically enough to actually seem somewhat plausible. So, I guess then maybe subtle isn't the right word I'm really looking for. But what I mean is that because so much thought went into it, it seems less out there than something you'd see in 80s cyberpunk films. And the Denver stage embodies that perfectly. It has that sleek, unified sheen that real cities rarely ever have, and there's like screens everywhere that make shit look nice, but it's also just a regular city with regular office buildings, cafes, and stores. Which makes it do that subtlety thing I just spent half the fucking video talking about. Now, gameplay-wise, it's mostly the same stuff you get in the rest of the game, which is awesome combat and not quite as awesome stealth sections. But something that is different is that it represents a pretty big turning point in Raiden's life, being that he decides that he needs to stop being a fucking pussy and just go full Mong, so he ends up stealing a motorcycle. But it also makes for a pretty damn cool boss fight. Thing is that MGR is a game about cutting things. But then, all of a sudden, the game presents this dude who appears to be uncuttable. And not only that, but he also does mind games and shit as he somehow makes Silent Hill happen, and he also throws tanks and flaming helicopters at you. Not sure where exactly he found those, but still, shit's pretty fucking great. Anyway, the dude in question is called Monsoon, and he's probably the coolest character in the entire game design-wise. I mean, the bright red colors of his suit contrast nicely with the turquoise palette of the level overall, and it also makes him stand out from the rest of the mostly colorless characters. Sadly though, he's also given less backstory than any of the others. He has his little villain speech, just like everyone else, sure, but the other guys had at least 1 or 2 cutscenes dedicated to them before Raiden cut them to pieces. And Monsoon doesn't. Which is kind of a shame, as it seems like a lot more thought was put into his character than what was eventually shown. And he is arguably the most Metal Gear-like character out of all of them. Despite that though, I do really like this level a lot. It's the part where the game becomes colorful for a bit, and it's also a pivotal plot point that gives some more depth into the Metal Gear universe by simply showing a city that isn't necessarily in a complete state of chaos. Well, most of it at least. But in any case, it is most definitely worthy of the title Sexy Stage.